This podcast is sponsored by Genelec. If you've ever been disappointed with the way your mixes sound on other playback systems, then check out Genelec's Unio monitoring ecosystem. By providing a seamless bridge between loudspeaker and headphone monitoring, Unio allows you to quickly create great sounding mixes that translate consistently, wherever you choose to work. No more guesswork, no more surprises, just truthful, accurate audio monitoring from stereo to immersive. To find out more, visit genelec.com/Unio, spelt UNIO. Your mixers will thank you for it.
Welcome to the Production Expert Podcast. I'm Ashea, and this week we are back for part 2 of The Science of Listening with our guests Professor Hyung-Kook Lee, Emre Ramazanoglu and Mark Gittins. Last week we did leave it on quite the cliffhanger with Mark asking a question. So we shall see if Mark was right or not. So let's listen back to the question.
Because I suppose like virtual reality headsets visually scan a space anyway and map a space out, don't they? So that data's there anyway for you to be able to create an audio, an acoustic model of the space as well, I assume.
Yes, exactly. That's what we're working on right now, actually.
Congratulations, Mark.
Oh, that's amazing.
We already have a demo. We captured a real string players, a string quartet with the OptiTrack, the motion capture trackers. And then we created the 3D models and animated them in Unreal Engine. And we project them in, MetaQuest 3, the VR headset. It can do AR as well. So we can project these players around you in your own room. And then using virtual, so we can map sounds exactly to the positions of these players. And now the MetaQuest does all the motion tracking. So you walk around and we grab this positional data, and it's much more what head tracking can offer. Once you start moving, it's so realistic. It feels like you are really with these players in your own room, even though
I'd love to check that out. That sounds amazing.
Oh my goodness, it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, next time if you have a chance to come up to Huddersfield, I'd be very happy to give you this demo.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is the future, I believe. And so, we can create a virtual mixing room. You can have sort of AR kind of studio. Anywhere you go, you can provide visual cues as well as auditory cues. I think, that's coming.
That is so
Excellent.
exciting. Honestly, it's just, I know you spoke to I think all three of you know Justin Gray, right? Yeah. I was at Dolby in Soho the other day at his screening, and it was a really lovely experience, and just how the visual elements and the dancing and everything just came together beautifully. But imagine that in, VR. Imagine having, there's just so much happening at the moment. It's just really exciting.
It is, isn't it? It's such a fascinating time for technology and for audio, especially within that.
Absolutely. Emre, what are your thoughts about that and your experience with sort of visual representation?
It can definitely play a part, but when I was dealing with specifically the Sony experience, which was really, really almost identical in the room, though I did a couple of different captures, and the first one was I just really couldn't tell bar level differences between the speakers and the headphones, and the other capture in a different room it was different enough that I could tweak and had to fiddle. So I was starting at quite a positive place with this, and it was really exceptionally good in the first capture. And when I took that out of the room, I did just close my eyes thinking, you know what, I'm an engineer, I'm just going to listen and ignore the visual side as much as I could. And what I found, which was echoed by, I found out later by other people testing this as well, and some other very experienced score mixers, I think, I can't remember who they were, but and re-recording mixers using it, is that they did what I found I did, which was train myself before I used it by doing the speaker ID, and then I made my own speaker ID with myself saying it, so the balance of vocals was something I knew even better, and that made a huge difference to localization. I don't know why it did, but a massive difference. When I was told where the speakers were, and then I listened to the music again, I could tell where things were much, much better. And that was with my eyes sort of shut throughout the whole thing. And that became, much more like the experience, but still not the same as being in the same room. But it was more usable.
Sorry, Amir, did you also perceive much of difference in tonal color?
It seems, yeah. As soon as you're out of the room, it sounds insane, like tonally. And when you're in front of the speakers, it's fine-ish. Yeah.
When you say insane, do you mean good insane or
no, like
bad insane?
I hear what I would attribute tight notch filtering and comb filtering and odd resonances and phase distortion. That's what it sounds like to me. But
we do measure individual HLTFs in our research, and I've done this quite a lot. So in one room, it was like a semi-treated studio room, and I tried to copy that room with my own ears. So we measured HLTFs, and after processing this and playback at the same place, I mean, in my own mixing position, and I listened to the results with the visual cues in front of me. Yes, my experience was the same. It was just exactly the same as what I hear from the speakers. But then I took it to my APL room and I listened to it. Oh my goodness! I could hear all these acoustic problems. I didn't notice them in the actual room, but after I moved to another room, I start hearing all these problems. So I think that's how our brain works. It's the adaptation that, if you're already familiar with this room acoustics, that works for you. And individually, I think that could be really useful for taking your own studio. But if you play to other people in other rooms, it might not work.
Yeah. I mean, what we need is more what you've done, I would say, which is, I'd say most people I know, most engineers in the UK don't really want their room. They would like a better room. So that's one of the comments I've had from people with stuff. So, if you can design a space you then get used to that's constant, and that's appealing. But again, you've highlighted really well all the issues that surround this kind of area, which is like still the most important area in immersive audio, I think. I mean, it's lovely to be able to do a big cinematic mix, but it's a tiny proportion of a tiny proportion of a tiny proportion that people will ever hear it. And, it's worth chatting to Mark, who's just done a cinematic conversion, which is the other end of the scale from a binaural. And that's incredibly challenging in ways that people don't even know about.
Yep. Yeah, that's a difficult thing. That's a completely different thing altogether. So I've just done a record, and after I delivered the record in Atmos, I've mixed it for a Blu-ray release. It's a live record, and for streaming as well. So there's been some streaming edits done. The label told me that it's going to get a cinematic release as well. So kind of previewed in a few Dolby cinemas in America. And they were under the impression that they could just take mix what I've already done and send it off, which again is a horrifying concept to me. So I said no, and we rented a fantastic facility in London called Bleat, which is a great post-film facility, where they've got a sort of a Dolby Cinema room in there with a Pro Tools setup and whatnot. And it's a completely different beast altogether. How this stuff works in cinema is so different to how it works in music and home entertainment. And the way, I won't go into too much technical detail, but the way that we tailor our mixes for music so that they translate well across headphones is absolutely the opposite of how you should how you should tailor your mix so that it translates well in a cinema. So these are two very different playback scenarios which need two very different approaches. So that was a big learning curve, and one that was a challenge to achieve in a day.
I bet.
But I did it, and it's gone out and apparently sounds great, so it's good. But yeah, so that's an interesting concept. These cinema rooms, their systems are tonally very different. the way that the speakers are set up and are sort of ganged together. The arrays of speakers are very different, so it's an interesting difference, that's for sure.
The Production Expert Podcast is made possible using the new Source Nexus suite from Source Elements, the professional way to collaborate over the internet, along with high-definition, low-latency audio and video. Need to record an interview or a podcast, or collaborate with others for songwriting, review and approval, remote editing, and more. With Source Nexus Suite, using any browser, you'll get studio-quality audio and video, along with custom-built tools for seamless integration with your DAW. Pricing starts at free. Get your account today at sourceelements.com.
It's really fascinating listening to all of this, and I can't believe, Mark, how you managed to do a mix, number one, in 2 days, just on with Virtuoso. It says a lot about the accuracy of that and the fact that you didn't actually have to. So did you actually, I can't remember if you said you did tweak it in the studio?
Sorry, the mix that I did on Virtuoso when I was on holiday. No, I didn't tweak anything on it. It was fine. It was great. It worked really well. And I think that's testament to two factors. I think it's one, Virtuoso is incredible as a piece of software, and two, that I have experience not just of that record but of mixing in a room, so I know, I have techniques that I fall upon, and I know how things sound in certain positions, what to. I've learnt from mistakes already, so I know what to avoid and things like that. So, it's only going to be the same when doing it in Virtuoso on a headphone experience.
Yeah, I found quite a good use for it the other day, which was I've just moved studios and built a new one, and having to do a lot of stuff, remixing and stuff on without my speakers up. But even before then, I was trying some new immersive technologies, and Virtuoso is actually unbelievably useful for error checking outputs, which is. There are kind of standards in immersive sort of speaker order, but there's a few, and some people are going completely rogue. Me and Mark actually spent a day yesterday going through all these new systems, and not one has the same speaker layout. So Virtuoso is really useful for seeing what's actually coming before you even get anywhere near speakers, which is really helpful. So, because you can solo speakers in that, and that's really, really helpful. Because
I've seen that. That's a version 2 thing, right?
It's extremely helpful in a number of things, but just error checking and catching faults and routing, you can't necessarily immediately hear on speakers because of, you can sort of work it out. But if you're playing back a full mix and you're, a couple of things are reversed sometimes, you will get it, but you just know it's not right. And this is instant. You go, okay, hang on, this is routed here, this is routed here. And also for setting up the room with it, it's really invaluable because you can just solo your ears and then solo the ears in here and build your system up sort of from scratch, aligning things, making things sound right, and then gradually piece together a really coherent kind of system like that. But anyway, it's that was a really useful thing. I've done a similar thing to Mark, so I've had to get mixes done with the combination of the binaural, which is Dolby binaural, which is actually deliverable effectively, and Virtuoso, going between the two and being able to work things out without speakers, and then coming back to speakers and going, oh right, okay, it works. Very useful. Yeah,
I've heard of another user case actually, which I'm interested about, and that is I've heard of a handful of engineers that are using binaural renders from Virtuoso for client approval. So for artist approval. That's interesting. I'd like to hear more about that, because that's not something I've considered before.
One of the best use scenarios. I'm really happy about this because a lot of people are using it for remote QC. So one of the examples is Halo 2, the TV series on Paramount Plus.
Yes.
That film was mixed in Canada. Matt Chan, he was the re-recording mixer working for Formasa Studio in Toronto, I think. And the showrunner was in LA, so they couldn't really play the speaker mix to the showrunner in person. So they used Virtuoso to send a binaural mix. And the showrunner was instantly happy with the result and approved it. And that kind of QC scenario is, I think Virtuoso gives a very because you can customize a room, and if the person listening to the binaural mix is in a particular sort of studio, with this particular acoustics, you can actually provide a mix that can actually sound like it's played in their own studio. And also the standalone app, you can play re-render WAV file or ADM directly. So if the client has a Virtuoso light version or standalone app, then they can just play the original high resolution ADM or WAV file directly. So yeah, and then solo each speaker, as you said, Emre. So I think I do that all the time for checking different mixes on Apple Music. I stream 714 directly into Virtuoso, and then you can check how the height channel sound, how horrible it could sound after the codec.
That's a conversation.
That's a whole different conversation. But because if you listen to the mixed binaural delivery in Apple Music, you don't know. I mean, it sounds a little bit muddy, but you don't know where this is actually coming from. But if you can solo each channel individually, then firstly you can learn how it was mixed. You can actually analyze the channels, but then also you can sort of do quality control in that way.
Oh, it's quite fascinating. It's quite clever.
It really is, yeah. Do we want to talk about Duopan or anything else that anyone can think of?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, I think so, absolutely.
Yeah, go for it, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, Duopan, I was very lucky to receive a version of it to play with before it was released. And there's quite a few tools that claim to do what Duopan does that I've tried before. And they all sound really weird to me. They all sound phasey, and things get thin, and tone changes, and all this sort of stuff. But with Duopan, it's fascinating because it's obviously it's primarily used for headphones, and you can pan stuff so that it sounds like it's coming outside your headphones with it. It's absolutely fantastic. But it does sound really cool on speakers as well.
Yeah, totally works.
Yeah, it really works. And I don't know if it should do or not. I don't know if that's like a psychoacoustic thing, or if that's like a placebo thing even. I'm not sure, but you can obviously know a bit more about the science behind it. But I'd love to know a bit more about how it's doing, what it's doing. And yeah, like I just think it's great. It's really good.
Thank you, Mark. Well, basically, Duopan is a panel that works both on both speakers and headphones. But well, the original motivation was actually to make a tool that can make any mono sound like it was captured using a spaced microphone array, for example, right? Because we do this all the time when you're recording acoustic guitar, piano, or whatever. We like using a spaced mic pair or near constant pair like ORTF, which is very popular in classical music. But when we do panning for pop music, we only use this pan pot, which does only level panning. So I thought, because time difference can give you this sort of spaciousness and more of a natural representation of sound, depending on the source, of course. But so that's why I made it. It's based on my psychoacoustic algorithm of combining time and level differences in a kind of trade-off function. So that means, if you use more of the time, then you should use less level. And if you use more level, then you should use less time in order to pan the sound to your target position. So it's a function basically based on my psychoacoustic listening test from many, many years ago. So it provides you with this seamless control between, the ratio between the time difference and level difference. And it doesn't overdo this time because, as Mark said, if you overuse this, it could sound very phasey and it can make the imaging very blurred. So yeah, the range of these time and level values are very carefully controlled. And also on headphones, you can actually make it more like a pseudo binaural, because without using HRTF, you can give an impression of a binaural sound, because Duopan provides you with dual band panning. So you can apply different settings to different bands, high and low band. So, for example, you can use more of a time difference to the low band and more of a level difference to the high band, which mimics how the human auditory system works. For localization, we use more of a time and phase difference for low frequencies and level difference for the high frequencies. And you can apply a bit of stimulation of the head shadow effect. So, the ear opposite to the source position always have some kind of high frequency roll-off due to the head acting as a barrier. So this is simulated in duopan as well. So yeah, I think it has many use cases. Well, one of them is also stereo image correction as well. So if you have a stereo recording and you have some imaging issue, a balance issue, using duopan, you can actually correct this quite quickly.
So, for example, like drum overheads and a snare position, and well, you mentioned it to me, and I gave it a go, and it really does work.
Yeah, it does work because, for example, if you capture overhead the drums using a spaced mic pair, snare always shifts to one side because of the time difference, because the snare is captured by the left microphone earlier than the right microphone, for example. Whereas the cymbals are widely panned and you want to keep them wide. But if you try to fix this snare issue, then other instruments like cymbals and kick and hi-hats are affected as well with the level panning. But with the time panning, you can actually correct the time difference for the snare naturally, because it's about how each drum is placed in the whole drum kit. The cymbals are very close to the microphone, so they give you more larger time difference originally. But then snare is farther away, so it gives you less time difference. So by using this time and level combination in duopan, you can actually correct the snare position by reducing the time difference encoded in the stereo signals. But even though you do that, even though you reduce the time difference for snare, the time difference originally encoded in the cymbal signals, they are not affected perceptually because of the precedence effect. You, for example, if the time delay goes beyond about 1 millisecond, then you hear the sound from the earlier position, as you know. So cymbals are not really affected by this effect. So that's how it works. And I know that some other engineers like Bob Katz recently did a mix of a jazz album, and he used duopan for correcting poorly recorded piano stereo recording. It was originally like quite hollow in the middle, and because the microphones were really close to the hammers, and so he used two instances of duopan, one on left channel, the other one on the right channel, and applied appropriate time level ratios and made it sound more like it was captured using a space pair outside the piano. It was a really good result.
Emre, do you have any experience of duopan?
Yeah, we used it quite a lot.
Yeah.
It just used it in my new room though for the first time. So I'm checking the speakers and actually was using it with Mark, in fact, yesterday, and we just flung a sound outside the speakers and both were like, oh God, it's really impressive.
We had a Dave Sonic discovery yesterday. It was great fun.
It was pretty great. It was really good. But that was impressive immediately because I hadn't got a chance to use it since being in my old room, which had a different sort of setup. But yeah, instantly like, oh, this is fantastic. Just so natural. That's the best thing about it.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
You don't really think about it, just as Ian Cook said earlier, you don't think about panning. It's just something you use within the context of a stereo mix. And now, much more involved. But it's interesting in immersive space because it lets you do some sort of, I don't know, it's potentially, I haven't really heard how it translates 100%, but I'm pretty confident in hearing other stuff I've done and knowing other psychoacoustic kind of processes and tricks we've used. I think it's going to be very, very good, but I have pushed things around to make more space but maintain the original kind of mix feeling, and it's really good at that. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I've used it in that instance as well, and it does translate quite well, actually. You can kind of do like binaural on top of binaural, if that makes sense. Yeah.
But it's really convincing.
Double binaural.
I mean, exactly. Yeah. Actually, Emre, you mentioned multi-channel. I mean, this, Duopan allows you to route your outputs to any pair of speakers in immersive settings. So I found it personally quite useful for panning sounds in between front left and side left. You know, this in 714, this space in the lateral plate, it's very difficult to, do an exact panning in that lateral segment.
It's where wide speakers fall down a lot as well.
So without the wide speakers, it's very difficult to pan it exactly in between side and front. So this is how the brain works. I mean, we are not very good at localizing sounds in the lateral. The resolution is very poor anyway. With just a level panning, and you also have this horrible coloration at the ear. So I tried adding some time difference using Duopan, and suddenly it just sounded much more accurate. I tried to, for example, pan it to about 60 degrees, and it works a lot better than just using a level panning. And in binaural, it also translates really well. It just gives you more distant kind of imaging, but also quite natural as well. Yeah, so please try it. Yeah, I think you might find it useful.
Yeah, for sure. I've been doing some moves like that, and I'm always dealing with mono or stereo objects. I don't really do anything with high object audio much in immersive. It's always discrete channels, and so there's surround information that I generate with upmixers or reverb. So this is it's extremely useful for me, Duopan, because it just sits exactly and deals with what I need to do. So yeah, it's sort of a unique plugin for that. I wish there was it would be great to have it sort of licensed so the panner could just be switched to Duopan mode. You know, that would be ideal.
Oh, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it really would, yeah.
This podcast is sponsored by Genelec. If you've ever been disappointed with the way your mixes sound on other playback systems, then check out Genelec's Unio monitoring ecosystem. By providing a seamless bridge between loudspeaker and headphone monitoring, Unio allows you to quickly create great sounding mixes that translate consistently, wherever you choose to work. No more guesswork, no more surprises, just truthful, accurate audio monitoring from stereo to immersive. To find out more, visit genelec.com/Unio, spelt UNIO. Your mixers will thank you for it.
This is all incredible, and it's so nice to, all three of you just having a chat and having all of your experience on the, with Hyunkuk as well. But if you don't have any more questions, I just want to ask Hyunkuk, in terms of research and also just your opinion, where do you see the future of all of this going? Do you have any more research planned? What can we expect?
Well, yes. So basically, my research is all about bringing, all this, human psychoacoustics, hearing and auditory science into practice. I just want to make tools that work better for, humans. It can benefit actual practical work. So that's why we're doing all these, psychoacoustic research, listening tests and statistics and all that kind of stuff. But so currently what we are aiming for is to provide the tool, as I described earlier, extended reality tool that anybody can use very easily and provides a plausible spatial simulation. Room acoustics or panning, whatever. Anything that we do needs to sound good, right? That's okay. We discussed before. Yeah, the tonality, the sound quality is the most important thing. So, what we are researching about is how to provide this realistic representation of the space and more accurate panning or, like better externalization in binaural, for example. But how much do we need to simulate the real space, for example? What is the sort of perceptual tolerance level? How can we make it sound very clean, neutral, full, but you still feel like you're actually there, and then having these virtual sound sources around you? How can we create that kind of balance? That is the sort of the main goal of our research. So for that, we're doing all sort of different experiments in AR, VR, with the virtual visual cues and virtual auditory cues. We are also working on auditory visual integration, adaptation process, because we want to understand more about how humans behave and what is the fundamental sort of level of cognition, like what is the fundamental nature of our auditory visual perception. Because both cues, they bias each other. Auditory cues can bias visual biases auditory. Yeah. But in the end, the most important thing is we provide the actual users the most customizable, personalized experience. So we talked about a bit of personal HRTF's limitation, but we are actually working on providing some new way of personalizing HRTFs with a bit of machine learning and AI research we are also doing at the same time. So we're trying to bring some more seamless process for customizing your binaural experience, and also help speeding up the adaptation process when you listen to the sound in a new environment or with a new HRTF. I think this adaptation is a very important topic for research. So yeah, that's what we are working on.
Amazing. Well, congratulations. It sounds absolutely, fascinating. And both of you, Mark and Emre, how do you see the future of, immersive? How do you see it all going? And also, what would you like to see in terms of research and added features, if there is anything?
Well, currently, we're in an interesting year upcoming where the music industry couldn't want immersive audio less, I don't think. I don't think it couldn't be less interested or less motivated to fund or work with or appreciate it. But the audio industry and wider visual, gaming, movie consumer has never been better positioned to embrace immersive, and it seems to be really ramping up, I think, in kind of interest and importance and availability and the unbelievable technology. Like, even if I think, was it a MetaQuest 2 headset I tried yesterday, and it's just blasting a couple of tiny ports out of the side, and it's quite impressive immersively. The head tracking is pretty amazing. You feel immersed, and that's not even a new device, let alone what's coming now. There's so much amazing stuff, and I sort of fall back on my boring comments that I say about this, which is, I sound cynical, but it's not at all. It's just more born of experience now, which is, it's been reduced to, in music, the cheapest possible, quickest possible, generally un-QC'd sort of rubber stamp to get a higher royalty is the reality of it. I would say some people are interested in it. I would say a tiny proportion of artists that I've done, I think, probably have heard the mix, generally QC'd by other people, and that's one thing. But that can be seen sort of negatively, and like, oh dear, how annoying. I'm going, it's early, and people don't really understand what's going on yet. But if you look at what's coming immersively and the new technologies, I mean, everyone should know that Apple unveiled the Apple Spatial Audio format, and if anyone's ignoring that, I don't know why, because it's an absolute powerhouse of a company that's forged this whole thing ahead, and I just think it would be weird not to be interested in what they're doing, because when they do stuff, I would say it's generally very impressive.
Yeah.
I'd say Apple Spatial has not been that thing. Apple Spatial for the whole industry has been a double-edged sword of enabling us to find this new space to work in and then sort of ruining it at the same time, because sonically it's not comparable with the stereo. So we have this big problem to deal with. But I would think, if you think that's not something everyone's aware of, I think, people aren't stupid. I think people write off, they look at the evidence in the short term. But I think as a long term, immersive audio is extremely important. And if you think about music and you're stubbornly sticking in stereo and because you don't like the way Apple Spatial sounds and blah, 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 well, okay, cool. That's fine. But if you want your mix to sound good in an immersive space, imagine sitting in the middle of a room and your mix is plastered on the wall ahead of you. And an immersive mix is all around you. What is going to feel more realistic in that space? Because if you listen to music, never, ever is it all in front of you. Ever.
And I will add as well, not just realistic, even though that's obviously a really important thing, but the because people can use hyper realism as well, which is
that's
really
even
incredible.
beside the point in some ways, because you're arguing, people just will write everything off as not being as good as stereo, and you go, well, if you're existing in a different plane and in this multi-dimensional sonic sphere, whether it's a sphere or it's a a rectangular world or whatever you're in, it's I would be interested as a audio engineer on what that might mean when my audio that either hasn't been done properly or hasn't been done with care or experience or however is plonked into that realm, because you won't have necessarily control of where your deliveries go, as people have found out, because none of us have control about where our stuff goes on Apple on music, and no engineer would have chosen that as the end format. But this is a stepping stone at the moment, and it's and always has been, and everyone's always known this. This is like very early days. Was it 2021? I think it started.
Yeah,
I think
it really hasn't been long.
So that's not so long, and I wish people would look at, people always can sort of go, oh, it's just 5.1 again, and this has nothing to do with 5.1.
No.
It's a completely different portable format. And if you do the Dolby Binaural, you can match the stereo, and it can be really convincing. And you make compromises on how creative and different it might be, but you can get something that will work absolutely as well. But if you sort of ignoring this whole thing, I don't think that's necessarily.
I think it's unwise to ignore. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to do it, but it would be worth being abreast of what's coming. Because I think it's potentially, I mean, people always say it's a really big year for immersive, but this year coming might be bigger than others before, I think.
Could be a game changer, yeah.
I think it will be at worst interesting.
Yeah, Russ loves that word, so I just pop it in there.
Get that in there.
Yeah. Mark, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, all of the above, and I think we've seen some really interesting technology being developed with things like beamforming both speakers and microphones, with VR headsets, and the way that media is being consumed for things like this as well. So, for example, Apple announced recently that they've got the rights, and this is purely speculation from my part here, so I might well be wrong, and Apple don't sue me if I am wrong. But Apple have secured the rights for the Formula One, for example. Now, I can pretty much guarantee that they are considering how to present that in virtual reality. Could you imagine how cool that would be?
Oh my goodness, don't. So exciting. Yeah.
There's, football matches. They're now looking at how, there's experiments being done at the moment. And I work in this world slightly with some of the outside broadcast work I do. There's experiments happening at the moment at various football clubs on how they can capture football matches in virtual reality. And let's paint a scenario here where you can choose what seat in the stadium you're going to sit in, You can choose to sit up on the gantry with the commentators. You can choose to sit on the manager's bench next to the manager. You can choose to replay goals with your head floating above the goalpost. You know what I mean?
Absolutely insane.
It's absolutely insane, isn't it? So,
yes.
So with all this stuff going on and audio as an all-encompassing thing has to be immersive. I think it's so naive to consider the fact that music within that is going to continue to be stereo and stereo only. You know,
totally agree.
It's super early days for all this stuff, but yeah, I mean, it's as a futurist, I think it's pretty clear to see where all this stuff's going. And you know, I think we need to see more consumer devices. You know, the Sonos Era 300's a brilliant playback speaker for immersive audio. I've heard really good things about Marshall's new soundbar and what that does with Atmos. Sennheiser have, you know, their Ambio line, and who knows what they might be coming out with next. And, you know, it's a really cool space. And I think we're all here because we love technology. You know, that's why we get into jobs like this and all that sort of stuff. And, it's just very exciting, really. That being said, currently the business side of things needs to give its head a bit of a wobble, I think, and sort of catch up with things. But I think that's always the case when things are new as well. So I don't think it's a big concern. But yeah, I think the future is really bright, and I think there's some cool stuff around the corner.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I also have a hope with AR glasses, you know, they're advancing and they're becoming lighter and lighter, like normal glasses in 5-10 years time. I mean, maybe in 5 years time, there will be products that you can just wear like normal glasses, and you can have like a virtual objects, you know, like a virtual navigation or virtual whatever, you know. But then, if the audio doesn't match the visual, then it's going to give you a very confusing experience. I mean,
it's only half the experience, isn't it? You have to have the audio has to be correct. For example, if you're watching a VR video of, let's say, like you said, an orchestra, for example, and if one section of that orchestra isn't positioned properly, it's going to throw the whole experience out of whack, isn't it? It's not going to work at all. So the two things have to marry up.
Amazing. This is really exciting. And we've spoken for very long, which I don't regret at all because there's so much interesting information. But let's just kind of whiz through our find of the week. So let's start with Mark. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, mine is a really cool multi-effects device called the Chroma Console, which is by Hologram Electronics. And so this is sort of a pedal format box. It's got stereo in and out on it. You can calibrate the levels so it works as, you know, great on a guitar as well as it does, you know, line level from an interface. It's got 4 sections to it. It's got character, which has got various different drive elements to it. It's got movement, which has got lots of modulation. So it's got like a doubler, it's got vibrato, it's got phaser, it's got tremolo, it's got pitch shifting. It's got a diffusion section, which has got delays, reverbs, reverse effects. And then it's got a texture element to it as well, which has got filters, compressors, cassette emulators. And it is so much fun. And it just sounds fantastic. It's really great. I set it up the other night, quite late at night, and I was sat here for hours playing with it on a mix and sort of throwing vocals into it and modulating them, and it's brilliant. It's currently on sale in the Black Friday thing. It was when I got it at like 10% off, so I think it's just under £400, and it is worth every penny. It's great. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant.
It looks fun as well.
Yeah, doesn't it?
I like it. A bit retro, but
great design, bit retro. Kind of looks like something out of like an Alien movie or something, doesn't it? Like some of the equipment they'd use in a spaceship. It's awesome.
Yeah, bit Star Trek.
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's really fun.
Love it. Hyun Kook, what's your find of the week?
My find of the week is actually my experience from this morning when we did a concert with this electroacoustic composition. It's like a acousmatic, like a film score, like a composition. Done by my colleague and amazing composer Monty Atkins. He's a professor in music composition at the University of Huddersfield. So I specialized his tracks. Originally composed for stereo, but I basically made a Dolby Atmos mix, and we performed it in our concert hall, Phipps Hall. There were about 60, 70 people attending, and it's really immersive. I mean, the content itself is so immersive. It's like a sci-fi movie film score. I mean, nice. Well, you can imagine whatever you want, but it's just like what I was really fascinated is that the shared experience is such a powerful thing. You know, I mean, there were 60 people here, and they were all blown away, and they gave a really good feedback. But what they said, I mean, I was fascinated by everyone saying different things. It's like a hyper-realism thing you mentioned, Aisha. Yeah, people were saying, "Oh, I felt like I was in outer space." And other people said, I felt like I was in a field and interacting with some, winds and stuff like. They're all imagining different things, because this kind of music, it's like, it's very different from pop and rock music. There's no lyrics. It's all very cool sound design and a lot of great synth sound, specialized, and so it's really hyper realistic. And one guy said, the movie Passenger, I felt like I was actually in that movie, listening to this. Wow. And then another guy said, I thought of a Blade Runner, all these kind of, all different ideas. But they all had a very great experience. And I think this kind of thing happens a lot when you play immersive music in a large setting, where there's a lot of people listening to this together. I mean, it's like a cinema, when you watch film, with all these people, you tend to concentrate on the film much more than when you're just watching Netflix. You get distracted by internet and stuff, right? But in this scenario, everybody was really like hyper immersed, and I was really fascinated by that.
That's lovely. Beautiful. So, Emre, what's your friend of the week?
Mine's studio nerdery. I found something called a copper line, which is this variable voltage phantom power box, which is really it's good fun. So it goes, I think it does 53 volts maximum, and all the way down to none. So you can supply your condenser mics with the wrong voltage, and it's pretty dramatic on some and not so much on others, but it can be really transformative, and you can get some incredible sounds out of mics you already know, and that's quite appealing for me. I like to sort of tinker with recording like that, and I've got quite a lot of recording projects coming up this year, so I thought this is going to be quite fun. So I haven't got it yet, but looking online, it looks really powerful. So you can, really fiddle with things, in an unusual way, especially affecting sort of transients and level and tone and everything. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good one. Fantastic. Well, I'm just going to plug Justin's album as my find of the week. Justin Gray's Immersive album, which I saw at, as I said, at Dolby Soho, which was so good. And like you were saying, Hyunkuk, I just kind of closed my eyes half the time and just allowed myself to get fully, as the word, it's the title's immersed, but it was really, and it was quite hyper realistic in places, and it was just lovely, and everyone was just really chill, because it's such a chill album as well, and just really into it, and the experience was great. So I recommend it to anyone who enjoys kind of that kind of immersive album, and also world music as well. It was really good, great musicianship.
Yeah, and all the hard efforts gone into this album, because I was in communication with him since a few years ago, and he talked about the process of his composition, his mix and reamping, and all these efforts. I think the real difference with this album is that he composed all this music with the immersive in mind. So it wasn't just mixed by him. It was actually, composed, produced, and everything. Exactly. It's just, with this immersive in mind. So, it's amazing album. Amazing. Yeah,
well, fantastic. Well, thank you all for really interesting chat.
Great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed chatting with you guys.
Well, that's all we have time for, but thank you so much to our wonderful guest. And next week I will be chatting to Andrew Sheps. Have a great week, and we'll be back next time.